I'm gonna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to training is my cause. I'm gonna travel across the land, searching far and wide. Teach Pokémon how to understand the power that lies inside. Pokémon, gotta catch them, it's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Pokémon, yeah, you're my best friend. In the world we must defend. Pokémon, gotta catch them, it's you and me. I know it's my destiny. You take me and I'll teach you. Pokémon, gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. Pokémon.
Welcome to Lord.js, yeah, and to another Pokemon video here on the channel, yeah. And this ain't no Pokemon Fairy, which I guess is what we usually do for Pokemon videos here on Lord.js, but this is instead my teams from every game, yeah. The first playthrough of each game, to be specific. At least as well as I can remember it, yeah, because I don't have all these old save files, because I don't have all these old save files for Pokemon still left, so I cannot look at the Hall of Fame and stuff, but this is as best as I can remember it. And some of these I do have, so some of these are definitely 100% correct, but anyway, we're gonna start from the beginning. Yeah, not at the beginning when Arceus or Arceus created everything, but as far as the real world is concerned, we're gonna start with Generation 1, Pokemon Red, because a friend of mine, known as King Anders, is his nickname, and he was my best friend back at the time, back in those days. And he's the one who introduced me to Pokemon, and he played a Pokemon Blue version, and therefore I played Red, so we could trade regarding version exclusives and stuff like that. So yeah, and my team for Pokemon Red, my final team at the end of the game was Jungle the Venusaur, Hades the Gengar, Heracles the Machamp, Electra the Raichu, Deep Fried the Gyarados, and Overdrive the Mewtwo. Yeah, that was my final team in the game, and I chose Bulbasaur / Ivysaur / Venusaur to start with, upon the advice of my friend King Anders, who, since he had already started playing before me, he was the one who introduced me to Pokemon. He kind of gave me some tips and pointers throughout my playthrough and told me what the game was all about and that sort of thing, and he suggested that Bulbasaur / Ivysaur / Venusaur again was the best starter to pick for the game. And since I trusted him, I took his suggestion and used Venusaur, played through with Venusaur as my starter, and it was a really good choice because Venusaur absolutely destroyed several of the opponents in the game. So yeah, dealt with rock and ground types and even other things. Yeah, so I believe the moveset I used, I'm not entirely certain, but I believe it was Leech Seed, Vine Whip, Razor Leaf, and Solar Beam, I think. I'm not entirely certain, but anyway, so that's why I used Venusaur, and then I realized that, and also because my friend Anders told me it, so I realized that an electric type would be useful, and since even then I discovered that Pikachu was this kind of iconic Pokemon, or whatever you know what I mean. So I used that, and then discovered that on my own actually, even though Anders didn't tell me, but I discovered it anyway, that Pikachu evolves with the Thunderstone, and I managed to get the Thunderstone, and I evolved my Pikachu into Raichu, and I named Pikachu Electra, since I imagined that in that playthrough, even though Yonder for Pokemon weren't introduced yet, but I still imagined Pikachu, and even later Raichu was female, so I called it Electra. Yeah, and then I also wanted to use Gengar, because I thought Gengar was cool, so I used that, caught a Ghastly, evolved it into a Hunter, and then traded with Anders so I could get Gengar on my team. Called it Hades, since it's ghost, dark, mysterious kind of stuff. So I thought Hades fits as named after the god of the underworld or the netherworld in the Greek mythology. So I thought that fit, and then I had Machamp the Heracles, which is named Heracles after the son of Zeus, which I thought fit for a fighting type, and then I had Deep Fry the Gyarados, which I mostly caught to use for Surf, but also leveled it up high enough to use it in battle also. And then I originally had Alakazam as my psychic type in the game, but then in the post game I caught Mewtwo and replaced Alakazam with Mewtwo, named it Overdrive because it's so powerful. Yeah, so yeah, that is Generation 1. I also played Pokemon Yellow, but I don't count that. We're gonna take only one game from each generation mostly, so we're gonna jump over to Pokemon Gold. Yes, my first game in the second generation, and to follow on with the tradition of the Generation 1 game, Pokemon Red, I once again picked the Grass Starter as mine, and so I played through with Meganium, called it the Rafflesia, after the flower Rafflesia, which I thought was fitting also because its neck flower almost looked like a Rafflesia. Actually, the Rafflesia is the kind of flower that the big flower on top of Venusaur's back is based on, I think. So, yeah. And then I transferred over my Charizard from Yellow, called Pyronium, or Pyronum, sorry. I transferred that over and used it as my fire type, so I could burn grass type and bug types and stuff. Then I also got Agrotic, the Donphan, even though Donphan isn't in gold, it's in silver in Generation 2 in the international copies of the game, but Anders again played silver, so he traded over a Donphan he caught into my game, which he named Agrotic at my suggestion, because I wanted that, so he traded that over, and that was my rock and ground type user. Then I transferred over, let me see here, excuse me, yeah, I also transferred over Jungle, the Venusaur from Red, to Gold, to use it again. I also caught Lugia, named Messiah, and used it as a psychic and water type, I think. And then I also transferred over Anubis, my Mewtwo from Yellow, and used that also as a psychic and dark type. Yeah. So that was a pretty good team. I liked it. It's one of my favorite teams actually that I've ever used in a main series Pokemon playthrough. Yeah. And then the next team was Ruby in the third generation in Hoenn. I picked Ruby to continue with the warm side of color for the game versions, having played Red and Gold previously. So I decided to go with Ruby, and the starter I used was Sceptile, named Woodcut, which was my grass type. And then we had Gardevoir, the female Gardevoir, named Mommy. Slacking, also named Insane, because I think that fits. And then I had a Sharpedo named Aquanock for water and dark type. And then I had a Shock Dog, which was Manectric, yeah. And then I had Aaron's Final Evolution, which I always forget what it's called, but I nicknamed it Iron Fat and used that on my team as well, yeah. Pretty nice team, I'd say, yeah. The next game I played was in Generation 4, and I played Platinum. I never played Diamond or Pearl. I played Platinum. I got that when that came out. I got Platinum when it came out, and my team was Pangeus, the Torterra, my starter, once again using grass type. And then I also got Pyrape, the Infernape, which I got in a trade. Not sure who I got it from, but I used that so I could have a fire and fighting type also. And then I had Luxray named Subcharge, a combination of super and charge for supercharged. Since it's electric type, I thought that fit, but I had to shorten it so because of the limit of the number of letters in Pokemon nicknames, so I shortened it to Subcharge. Then I used Mismagius as my ghost type, called Afterio for Afterlife. And then I had Rage Bird, the regional bird, the Final Evolution. I forgot what it's called, but anyway, I nicknamed it Rage Bird. And then I had a Garchomp, nicknamed Wild Raw. Not Wild Draw, but Wild and Raw, because it's badass and kind of violent and aggressive, I guess. So that was my team for Platinum, my final team that I defeated the Pokemon League with. Yeah. That team, though, changed multiple times throughout the playthrough. But the team I just described was the final team that I beat the Pokemon League with. Yeah. I did have a water type throughout a large portion of the game, also though to use Surf, but I don't remember what it was. And I also had a Psychic type at one point on the team as well, which I also don't remember. So, yeah. And some of the other teams changed also throughout the playthroughs. For example, I had a Ghost type for a little while on my Ruby team, but later switched it out for Aquanock, the Sharpedo. Once I caught the pre-evolution for Sharpedo and evolved it into a Sharpedo, I decided to use that instead. So yeah. And I also had a Fire type for a little bit. Yeah, but I don't remember what it was. Sorry. It might have been an Arcanine from a trade, maybe. I have a faint memory of maybe using an Arcanine in Ruby. But anyway, so those are the up to Generation 4, which will be this first video, and I'll do a part 2 to this, where I continue with the more modern generations of Pokemon, and tell you what Pokemon I used on those teams. Thank you, have a nice day. Viva la Revolution, and train on!